What a joy that you have found us for this podcast. How exciting it is to think that this spiritual message is going out to people around this planet. Whether your life is working at a peak level or whether it can use some enhancement, have I got the message for you today. So get a piece of paper, get ready to take notes, call a friend, have them watch this podcast also. Then you too can have something to talk about and take it to a deeper level. So enjoy. Here we go. Hey, good morning, Seaside. Wow, what a joy it is to be here with you on this wonderful summer day, 4th of July celebration going on, bringing in more rows of chairs. It's an exciting day at Seaside, that's for sure. We got a wonderful concert going on. Reverend Fran, is Ruby coming? Ruby of the Red Hots. You should come, and that is fabulous, coming out of the studios. Free concert for you. The choir is hosting a barbecue. It is a fabulous day at Seaside because you're here. Just you help make it what it is. And this morning's message is a message about hope. It is a message of love, and it's called The Turning Point because truly we are at a turning point in our history. You know, America was born, as we're celebrating here, some time ago. Actually, we can thank the Boston Tea Party for really uniting the states and creating a liberal democracy. And basically, they were rebelling. We were told in school that it was because of taxation. As you get into college, you find out it wasn't because we were taxed, but rather it was the cronies of the crown that got the tax break that made it unfair for them to do business here, that created the uprising. And in 1776, we got together and signed the Declaration of Independence that really declared our war, our independence, our freedom. 56 guys sat down and put their name, their sacred honor, their fortune, and their lives on the line, because I'll assure you, once the king got it, he was not happy. You know, and the first people he came after were those 56, and those 56 paid dearly for our freedom. But if you take a look at history, it kind of started when Queen Elizabeth I created and funded the East India Company, which was to do the merchants, the commerce on the globe, really took on the Dutch Trading Company and really built England from the 1500s, a feudal little state, into a very strong international power in the oceans. And she started this company with the stockholders who happened to be part of the parliament at that time. And so all of a sudden you had the bringing together of business and the leadership. And in the middle of the 1600s, King George had the 211 members of the House of Lords, who were all part of the shareholders of the company, passed a law that forbid anybody to do commerce unless they got a special permit, which they never gave out, to any of the Americas or any of their other nations. And if they did, they were called privateers or pirates that were to be put to death, which basically put a strong hold on their dealings with America, which really set them up to be our first Walmart oh dear. Well, after they pretty much had gathered all the easy gold, and it was nice and safe in Europe by that time, and they fell on hard times in about the 1760s, not able to deal, sitting on 17 million tons of tea, and in hard times, King George and the House of Lords went to the Parliament, who set up kind of like an Enron tax deal for the East India Company, which basically said they didn't have to pay taxes. But not only did they not have to pay taxes, they passed this tax act in 1773 that gave them a rebate for millions of pounds and allowed them to do business in America at really unfair prices, putting out of business all the tea houses, which were on every corner, like we have Starbucks now. You know, tea was the drug of choice in those days, and they were doing business. And the American people said, no, we're not going to deal with this, which then created that Boston Tea Party in which we heard. And so the idea of self-interest and government goes way back. And the founding fathers said, you know what, that's not okay. You know, we're setting up a place that is going to be free of that. And you know what? I think we're at a turning point. We are at a turning point in history. We're at a turning point that is exciting, where we're at a time, a magical time, that is that time between night and day, that moment where it's not dark and it's not light, where the magical and the mystical things begin to happen. They begin to move in. It is a turning point in which we are at a time in which we are between two historical epics, a time where we are moving away from our orientation and making decisions based upon fear. We are breaking free of our fear-based decision-making time to a time where we're going to be led by a vision. We're going to be led by a dream that is bigger, a vision that sees a world that is free of borders, where the oceans are open. We are stepping into a time that is calling us forward, where we are going to make our decisions not based on scarcity, fear, dominance, oppression, but rather based upon the collective good, and allow that liberal democracy to have its way and its rule in the world in which we live. We're stepping into a time that we're no longer going to be making our decisions based upon fear, and fear of losing or hatred. Because if you think about it, our nation was raised on doing battle against that which we hated. 1750s, we really didn't like the French. But came about 25 years later, we despised and hated the British, and now we like the French. They were going to help us. And about another 87 years on down the line, those in the South were told to hate their brothers and their sisters in the North, and those in the North were told to hate those in the South. Even if they were of the same bloodline, they were someone we were to despise and to hate and do war against. Oh, and it's okay to love the British again at that point. And then when we got that all settled up, about 30 years later, we were hating the Spanish, and we were to love our brothers and sisters to the North and the South. And then after the Spanish, we hated the Germans. And, we would go to war against Japan. And then all of a sudden, we were now hating the Russians. And now it wasn't the Russians, it was the communists. It may have looked like North Korea or North Vietnam. And all of a sudden, it's not a people, it's a philosophy. But now it is okay to love Iraq, because Iraq was going against Iran, who we were really not liking at that time. But then it's okay to, it's confusing. Who am I supposed to hate this season? And so the issue, I don't think, is the people. I think what it is, if we are to hate, is to hate itself. That is the destructive energy that is there in our planet. And so what we project when we're coming from that kind of place into this world is a sub-self, an ego-based sub-self that is stepping out into the world, that is leading with me, the hater, or me, the angry one, is leading with me, the depressed, or leading with me, the hurt one, or leading with me, the one that has been betrayed. And all of a sudden, the projections and what we're creating in this world is coming from a base that is not healthy, that is not positive, but rather it is time to know that we are at a turning point where we can begin to see a vision, to catch a vision, and know that we have a voice, that we can be participants in a collective energy that is going to come from a vision as opposed to a place from fear. But what has happened is you'll find the lobbyists roaming the halls of Congress basically free these days, influencing legislation, actually putting and writing the words for legislation, which in the early days of America was illegal, for business to influence the legislation of the citizens. The founding fathers of this country broke off because they didn't like the English monarchy, whose government and self-interest were intertwined and created an oppressive environment. Our government was set up for the people, by the people. And yet when there is that self-interest there, we find ourselves sometimes moving in the direction that is not of the people and for the people. The First Amendment, what does it do? It says it is illegal for the government to enact a law to abridge the freedom of speech, the freedom of press, and the freedom to peaceful assembly in petition to the government to readdress our grievances. And what do? In political gatherings, people who have contrary opinions to the host of that gathering are put in what are called free speech zones. They are shipped behind chain link fences, kind of look like cages, if you wanted to think, by gunpoint sometimes, and told to stay there and cannot come within a mile or more of that area in which they want to have their grievances heard. Fourth Amendment guarantees that we are to be secure in body, in our house, in our home, in our papers, and our effects. That there cannot be illegal search or seizure without relevant cause. And in 2003, there was an act enacted that took away that freedom and allowed those in a position of authority to take a look at your medical records, your credit card records, your bank records, or any other records they feel are relevant to look at without your permission, without court or oversight, just because their desire is there. Now, the good news about that, if there is such a thing, okay, is that we're at a turning point. That kind of behavior has happened before in times of war in our country. And the good news is when the time frame runs out on that kind of behavior, it does not have to be reenacted. And if the voice of the people say, you know, enough is enough with this, we are now stepping into a place that is free. We're at a turning point that it served its purpose, whatever it may be, and we may never know because we did not have to be told that they were inspecting whatever it was they were inspecting. We are now entering a time in which we are once again to have those inalienable rights. See, we believe in this country that we have inalienable rights and the government has permissions or it has privileges. See, in the old world, the rulers had the privileges and gave the rights to the people. We believed in these inalienable rights were ours, God-given, to be free, to be able to express ourselves, to be able to create from vision. But what has happened is we create from fear. And I'm here to remind us that we can create from a place of vision and not fear. And we're in a beautiful country where it does respond. Whether you believe it or not, our Congress people really do hear us if we are willing to take the time to speak up. Do you know if you call the United States Capitol and ask to speak to your congressperson, probably won't speak with them directly, but you will speak with one of their staffers. And they will take down your message. And the key to get heard is to have only one point and to keep that point to one or two sentences so the possibility of it being communicated clearly is better. You want to call your congressman? Could you put up the phone number? There's your United States Capitol phone number. Give them a call. Let them know what is in your heart and your soul, what should be going on in your neighborhood. Even more powerful than that, you fax, email, or send a letter with 5 to 50 people to your local congressperson, if it's Bill Bray or whoever it is. And if you got something important in your heart and your soul, you sit down. But that usually gets a response when they're in town. If 5 to 50 people have a position, they are well aware that their continuance in servant leadership is by the people. So do not back off. We are at a turning point, and that turning point says it is time once again for the voice of the collective to rise up, to speak up, and to be heard. It is a magical time. It is that dawn between the darkness and the light, and it's only there for those who are willing to open their eyes and to step into the magical time. It is a great time in our country. You know, if somebody was a child of the Queen, they would know it, right? And that would come with some privileges. My goodness. And if they didn't know it, they would be missing out on quite a bit of their identity. Well, you know what? It is bizarre to think how many of us forgot that we are children of a Father, Mother, heavenly presence. That we are children and expressions of the divine. That Father, Mother in heaven or wherever it is, that we are children of the Most High that is far greater than anything that may seem ominous, too big to deal with. It is bizarre to think that we have forgotten our heritage and our lineage. Just like someone who may have forgot they are a child of the Queen, that would be bizarre. But it's just as magnified, geometrically magnified to think that so many have forgotten that they are children of God. With all that is possible that kind of creation brings, and fallen into the stupor, into the sleep. We're at a turning point in time. It's exciting. Time. You know the Bible, it says, and Adam fell asleep. Remember that? You realize nowhere did it say, and he woke up? So many of us are asleep to our divinity, to our heritage, to that to which we truly are. And in that sleep, there is the nightmare of war. There's a nightmare of violence. There's a nightmare of abuse. There's a nightmare of physical abuse. There's a nightmare of oppression. And what is essential is that we wake up. Wake up from that stupor state. You know the story of Snow White. You know, you've got the wicked stepmother who represents the ego. And you've got Snow White, who is the beauty, the purity, the innocence. And the stepmother wants to get rid of her. And you can't kill that which is of God, but it can go to sleep. And it goes to sleep. And then you've got the prince, who represents the unconditional love. And he comes to Sleeping Beauty. And imagine if the prince showed up with a sense of judgment. What? You're still sleeping? Do you realize all that I have gone through to get here, and you're still sleeping? It is the middle of the afternoon. You don't even have your bags packed. Don't you get it? It doesn't create healing. It doesn't create an awakening. Judgment and criticism only pushes it away. So sit in a sense of criticism and judgment against anyone, anything, any government is not what solicits the forgiveness, the ability to create, the ability to do something. It is that unconditional love that creates the healing. And it's up to us to step into that place that is able to facilitate the healing. Love is the key. I said this morning's message is about hope and love. Love is what heals. Love is what is going to heal the world in which you live and in which I live. You inhabit the world that you see. Got that? You inhabit the world that you see. And so as you read, or as I read about war, I remember that each day also has a sunrise and a sunset. As I read about some of the headlines, I also choose to remember how many people fell in love this day. There are people who want to live in the prophecy of doom and Armageddon. The world is going to come to an end. It's going to fall apart and everything's going to go, you know, their stories are just graphic. And that's the world in which they live in. They live in that world in fear. They were brought up with that fear, with the hatred. Or you can choose to live in the world that sees the greater good that is coming forth. God hasn't lost its enthusiasm for life. So by God, I'm not going to lose my enthusiasm for life. We're at a turning point. You know, there is still creativity going on. There are still people smiling in this world because they mean it. There is art still being created. There is magic still going on. There are still people falling in love. It is an exciting time in which we live upon this planet. It is an exciting time for God's greater good to have its way. It is a turning point that we are at, but we must know that we have got to begin to approach things in a new way, a new thought. This is part of the new thought movement. We must begin to approach with a new idea. The idea that love can prevail here. Wow, what a concept. Call me crazy. I've been called lots of strange things, you know. New age nut. Out of touch. Insane. But I got to tell you, those that are building up arms for war at the cost of hundreds of billions of dollars a year and don't see a problem with that are considered sane. Those that are creating a stronger nuclear arsenal to resolve conflict upon this planet so we can have peace are sane. Boys with new toys tend to like to play with them. It's like we're living in the world of Alice in Wonderland, where the sane are considered insane and the insane are sane. It's like an upside down kind of something going on. The miracle workers are the ones that can see possibilities. Not coming from fear, but see the possibilities coming from love is what I believe. We're at a turning point. The old fear-based driven models has not worked. It has taken us to an amazing edge. The miracle workers, the light bringers to this planet are people like you who say, you know what, there is an alternative. And it does not have to be an eye for an eye. We're at a turning point, and it's an exciting time to be alive and part of this dynamic world in which we live. It is a time where we can step off in a way that is powerful and is good and is God ordained. But we must have the kind of passion that will make the change. It will make the change. You have the tools. It's not because we're spiritually ignorant here. Spiritual information, knowledge is huge. I thank God for our ability to communicate through the media, through our global system. Thank the military for giving us the global brain to hook up. You take a look at the bestseller list of movies and books. The spiritual information, it's not because we're spiritually ignorant, it's because we're lazy. I was talking about this last week. I think we're spiritually lazy to use the discipline that is necessary to step out there. It takes discipline. It's easy to love when it's convenient. It's easy to forgive when it's not a biggie. It's easy to have faith when there's some rational possibility that it may turn out. But do you have the spiritual discipline to turn it around in your life and in the world for all of us? Because I will assure you that those advocates of hate do not just do it when it's convenient. Those terrorists of hate don't just do it casually and sometimes. They have committed their lives to it. They're willing to die for it. Are you willing to live, to express the love that you have been entrusted with to bring into this world? Are you willing to live with the same kind of conviction? It's not as if we're not all students of this spiritual know-how. It's just that we're average students, students of these spiritual principles. It takes discipline and it takes commitment to practice love when people are not loving you. This is a turning point where we're going to let go of being driven by our fear-based belief systems to embracing a love and a vision and a light that is rising in the midst of the challenges of this world. It is a turning point where we are stepping onto a bridge and over the bridge and letting go of a life that is being driven by fear and being pulled by a vision of love and possibilities and brothers and sisters in a world that is free of borders and homelessness and pain. We are stepping out into a world with a deep faith and a discipline where love is considered the suspect and fear is the norm. It's an historical time that we are in. It is a turning point of time. It is a place in history that is exciting to be at, just as exciting as the 1770s, and just as important for our independence and our freedom. It's not as if other times in our history we haven't been at a crucial moment. I basically think every moment in history has been a challenging time. And you know what? The voice of people have continued to rise up in America. They've continued to take the stance. When there are some things that have appeared to be political in their origin that did not support the collective belief. A few started with the vision and the guts and committed their life. And we abolished slavery, eliminated the oppression of women, subjugation of the Native Americans. We've done it, and we can continue to do it, which is what makes America one of those bright lights upon this planet. Whether the blunders we have been making out there in the physical world can be questioned or not, America still stands as a metaphysical light to the world, as a place of possibilities. It stands as a symbol of freedom. It stands as a symbol of hope, where we may look at some of the other cultures with what they have created with awe and wonder. They are cultures of the past that are done. The symbol that America brings to this planet is a future Other cultures are done and gone. America stands as a future of freedom and possibilities, that we are at a place of choice, that the land is still wide open. There is still open space and mountains and forests and streams and rivers and infinite possibilities. It stands for the world to see as like a human being, that within the human soul is the infinite possibilities that are there for us to come forward. And it stands there as a possibility for the world to see that you are free to still unfold yourself in the midst of conflict and confusion. There is a greater vision that is pulling you. It is a tumultuous time. It is a stormy time. It is a time for all hands on deck. And you have been called. God bless you, because we're at a turning point. So I'd like to invite the ushers to come forward as we do take our gift from our heart. Again, with a lot of heart and soul and passion. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. I am prosperous now. Hey, I trust you enjoyed that podcast. It was very exciting to be able to create that and to know that there are people like you all around the world that are observing and integrating these spiritual principles into their life. And so if you enjoyed it, what I'd like to do is encourage you to tell a friend or bring several friends together and watch another one of these podcasts, and then afterwards take some time to talk about the spiritual principles, to talk about the stories and what significance they have and relevance they have in your life. What then happens is it moves to a deeper and deeper level in your world. It becomes real and assists you to create the freedom in your life that your heart and soul so desire. So if you like this, I encourage you to watch it again, but also tune into our website here at seasidecenter.org. There, you can get some of my written material and take a look at it. You can read some of my spiritual prayers. You can even go to our online bookstore and order some of the books. And if you're so moved, what I greatly would appreciate is your financial support, which you could do online at seasidecenter.org. It is support like yours that assists us to be able to continue to do these kinds of gifts for humanity and send it out to the world. Because you know what? We are making a difference with this spiritual message. And because of support like yours, people are being touched in the farthest reaches of this planet, as well as our backyard, more than we could ever begin to realize. So I thank you from the fullness of my heart for making a difference.